Good morning. So our dough has risen overnight and look at it. Remember, it was just like here, and then overnight it grew up to the top of the bowl, and we can see some beautiful bubbles in there. This is a happy sourdough. So now I'm going to do the next step, which is called pre-shaping. So check this out. My next step, I'm going to take a little bit of my flour from a pie. I'm going to carefully take my sourdough out of the bowl. Kind of loosen the edges and it should plop right out. Don't worry, as you do this, you might lose some of the volume because some of the airs might collapse a little bit, and that's okay. I'm going to do a little bit, very light dusting of flour from a pie. This is called pre-shape. So I'm going to get it into like somewhat of the shape that it's going to be when it grows up. And so I'm very gently going to gather it and fold it. This one is going to be like an oval shaped loaf because I have an oval shaped baking pan to put it in. So I'm going to gather the ends in towards the middle. I'm doing this in such a way that I'm using the tips of my fingers and I'm gently pinching it together because I don't want too much air to escape from my dough. For a closer look, let me show you from here. Let's see, where can I do it? There you go. Okay, so I'm gathering it in just like this. I want to be careful to keep all of those air bubbles in there. So I'm kind of, see how I'm gathering it, but I'm not smashing it down. I'm also not incorporating a ton of flour. Neither of those things would be helpful right now. And the first part is just a pre-shape. This is not my final shape. So I have it in like kind of an oval-esque. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap like this, right on that parchment paper. I'm going to let it rest for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and do the final shaping. Okay, and this is after a good 10-minute rest. So here's our dough. After 10 minutes, all of the gluten in the dough has had a moment to just kind of relax a little bit, and it'll be a little bit easier to work with. If you're ever working with bread and it tends to just falls up or it resists, just cover it with plastic wrap, give it a timeout, right? Just kind of like a toddler, if it's having a temper tantrum, it's just being awkward, give it a 10-minute timeout, let it rest, and then come back and things will be much easier from there. Obviously, plastic wrap is bread advice only, not for temper tantrums of other kinds. This is a flour sifter. This is my bread basket. I got this online. It's made of a really special wood that breathes, and then it has this very special linen from France. You can't use something other than this because your dough will stick. These are made out of really special materials. They're not super expensive. I think this was like $9. I use it every day. Also notice how clean it is. You brush it out after every use or wipe it with your hands. Keep it perfectly dry. Never get this wet. This never gets washed. It never gets wet. It will last you forever. Take really good care of it. You want to make sure that you have a nice even layer of flour from a pie. This will prevent your dough from sticking to your fabric and ruining the fabric and ruining the shape of your loaf. So let it snow, let it snow. So now I'm gonna do my final shaping, and it's gonna go like this. I'm gonna be roughly within the context of the shape that I've set because it's gonna fit into this container. So the first few times you do this, it's a little trial and error, right? But I've done this a few times, so I kind of know the size and the shape that this loaf pan is going to be. So I'm going to gather my edges in. I'm going to pinch it together. And again, I'm going to be, I want to seal this. This is called the seam. I want to seal it firmly, but I also don't want to puncture the air bubbles that I've worked so hard to build, right? So I'm going to gather my ends in, pinch those as well. And what I want is a really nice, tight loaf. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to gather it up and I'm going to pinch it towards the center. And you want to have a loaf that is going to hold its shape in that pan. I'm going to gather my ends in as well. Now this basket does not go in the oven. This is just for shaping my dough. Okay, and once it is properly pinched and sealed, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to put it in my basket. pick it up in such a way that you do not damage those air bubbles, kind of like a sleeping baby. And we're gonna plop it in this basket. That worked out pretty nicely. And then you can just adjust it so that it's even. If you find that you have the dough that's bulking up on one side, you can gently press it so that it's flat and even. This will give you an even rise and an even shape, an even distribution, which will give you a nice even bake in the oven. Okay, so once it's in here, I'm gonna cover it with plastic again. I'm gonna let it rise until it is ready to bake. And I will show you what to look for to know that it has risen. At least 30 minutes, but it can be an hour, hour and a half, depending on how warm your house is. Let it rise somewhere warm-ish, but not hot, not like on top of an oven that's too hot. But if your house is really, really cold, it's gonna take longer to rise. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's risen. And we're back. So our bread has risen. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful? Look at that. Look how much it's risen. Okay, so I'm gonna, so carefully peel off the plastic wrap. And then wait till you see what happens next, you guys. You're not gonna believe it. So I'm gonna take my flour, just refill a little bit. Flour from up high. Nice little dusting of flour, not too much, just a little. And so carefully, I'm gonna very gently with my fingertips, let me show you a little close up here. With my fingertips, I'm just gonna loosen the edges around my bread. So I want to see all those bubbles. I wanna keep those. Those are deliciousness. Those are delicious bubbles. And I don't wanna deflate them, but I do wanna get my bread out of the basket. So that's the game here. So I'm gonna so carefully, gently, so gently. Look at that. Isn't that a lovely loaf of bread? Now with this, I'm gonna brush it off into the sink right away. You don't want this to harden. If you leave it sit for really any length of time after you take your dough out, it can get crusty, not in a delicious way, but in an unhelpful way. And you do need to keep this incredibly clean for the next time. So I always stop immediately and clean it out. You don't want this to sit without the bread in it for any length of time at all. And when it's thoroughly wiped out, you can let it air dry for the next loaf of bread tomorrow. Okay, so now check this out. We'll do this a little bit closer up here. I have, okay, so can you guys see? Here's my beautiful loaf of bread. And I have my Dutch oven. So my Dutch oven is oval. See the shape of this? So that's why I'm making an oval loaf. I purchased an oval basket that the shape of this will fit perfectly inside my Dutch oven. If you have a round Dutch oven, then I would suggest getting a round pan or a basket rather, and that will help you. Now that my bread is out, you can use a clean dry brush if you have it, or your hands very, very gently. I'm gonna brush off all the extra flour, just like snow. Hand brush it off. If a little bit stays on, it actually looks kind of pretty, and there's all kinds of stencils and things that you can get to make pretty shapes and patterns on your bread, and we can get into that a little bit later. But I'm going to show you how to slash your bread. Let's see if we can do this on the camera. Can you see the loaf? Let's see, how are we going to capture this? Give me one moment here to find the ideal angle for you to see this from. Okay, how's that? So I'm going to go through, and you can do one slash right down the middle, and that makes a very nice crust. So it really depends on what type of shape you want. So I think for this one, I'm just going to do one long slash right down the middle, just like this. And I'm using the edge, this sharp pointy edge in the corner, just like this. And I'm going to go over that same line a couple of times until I have like a good 1/2 inch gash in that bread. And this is called slashing your dough. And what this is doing is this is allowing your steam to escape without exploding your bread. And this is also going to create a really nice crust. Okay, so we can also do yes. Okay, so you could do, there's different shapes of slashing that you can do. And now we're going to put the bread into my Dutch oven. So if the bread is on some parchment paper with a little bit of flour, and I'm going to lower it into my Dutch oven. Just like this. And I'm gonna put the lid on. And now to properly bake bread, I'm gonna bake it in my oven at about 450 degrees with the lid on. I'm gonna check it after about 40 minutes, and I will show you what happens after that. And we're back. I just have to show you guys what it looks like when the bread comes out of the oven, because this is the best part. Are you ready? It's a surprise. What is it gonna look like? Oh my gosh. Can you see? You ready for the big reveal? Okay, there you go. Look at that beauty. Look at that. Okay, I have to show you like what it looks like on a pretty platter, but you have to just see the moment it comes out of the oven because it's pretty fun. You guys, hot bread out of the oven. It is so crunchy. It is so crispy. It has such a great crust. But really it's all about the smell. So you need to just bake some bread and let me know how it goes. Happy baking.